Thanks for joining us, Jonathan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us today, whenever you're watching this little webcast of ours. I am Chris Timol, the President and Chief Operating Officer here at PuzzleHR. And joining me today on Puzzle Pieces is one of our founding puzzlers, Jonathan Boehmer, who is our Vice President of Sales or Customer Success or something like that, up in the East Coast, up in Boston. Super excited to talk to Jonathan today about this incredibly riveting topic. So everyone, I know HR. How exciting could an HR topic be? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's even more exciting than that. This is where accounting and where taxes and HR come together, the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So back in 2020, when the CARES Act came out during COVID, Jonathan and I spent a lot of time, Jonathan mostly, spent a lot of time really diving into the CARES Act and PPP loans and all things associated with the pandemic relief kit that came out back then. And we were doing webinars about the CARES Act and PPP. We had hundreds and hundreds of people join us for some of those webinars. It was really, really crazy back then. Now fast forward 3 years later, we're out on the other side of this thing, which is great. But there is still one little bit of a holdover, and it is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And last year, probably the middle of last year, Jonathan came to us and came to me and said, "Hey, we really should start doing this for our customers. Look, we help them get their PPP loans, right? We help them get their PPP loans forgiven. Right now, there's this Employee Retention Tax Credit. Why don't we help them with that?" And so we dipped our toe in the water and started doing it a little bit, and started doing a little bit, and started doing a little bit more. And we've just come to realize that it is an aggressive benefit that every business should really look to take advantage of it. And I found that there are a lot of folks who just really don't understand it. Right, JB? And I thought, who better than, I mean, I know you didn't write the CARES Act, but you know it better than anybody else. So my expectation is you're going to bring us to school on the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So Jonathan, thanks for spending some time with me today. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Chris.
So ERTC, what is it?
It's the Employee Retention Tax Credit, Chris, and it is a program that was born out of the CARES Act. It started in the March 2020 timeframe, like you stated. There's a lot of confusion around it originally. It was not available to small, mid-sized businesses if they used the PPP, the SBA PPP loans. And there was a lot of confusion around that for a long time. People didn't know if they could or could not use both. So we really worked to make sure that the clients of ours had all the information necessary in order to determine their eligibility, work with their CPAs or their tax attorneys to determine, based on the rules, if they could be eligible for pretty sizable returns.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen some of them come through, so I'm with you, and really appreciate your expertise. I remember back in the day, you literally calling the SBA, spending time on you got friends there now, senators, lawyers.
Was it interesting times? No question.
So yeah, I mean, no one really knows this stuff more than you. So talk to me about, I mean, you just laid it out, but we've had some real success at Puzzle, filing for some fairly sizable tax credits for companies. What have you found, with some of these companies that we've been helping? Like what kinds, what did they expect when they started working with us? What do they typically get? What kind of blows them away? What's their aha? What do people see when they work with us, when they work with you on the ERTC front?
Yeah, I think in general, businesses just undervalue how much money is actually out there for them with the ERTC. When you do the calculations fundamentally, it is $5,000 of tax refundable credit up to the first $10,000 in wages, for all employees in 2020, and then in 2021, it's $7,000 per quarter up to 10,000. So per employee, you're looking at about a $26,000 tax credit per employee if they had enough eligible wages. I think what most businesses get confused about are the rules. And so you just need to be able to interpret the rules. And the program doesn't allow you to actually double dip with the PPP loan. So there are specific things that you have to do when you're pulling the payroll data and performing the calculations. But I think what dissuades most businesses from going after it is it's too good to be true. This money could not be really coming back to me in some kind of tax credit. And when these refunds do hit, they are sizable. Oftentimes they're very, very sizable, and they could be game changers, for the business owner who, quite frankly, suffered through just a horrendous, period of business in America. I mean, you think back to 2008 and the banking collapse and the Wall Street collapse. You think of Black Friday in 1987. I mean, it was an epic time in U.S. economic history for businesses to go through this. And quite frankly, while not everybody is going to qualify for them, if you do qualify for that $26,000 per employee, it behooves you to take a look at it, talk to your CPA, your tax attorney, or Puzzle.
Yeah. You said two things there. You said a bunch of things, but two things. You said sizable, right? And then you said refundable. So tell us what a refundable tax credit is versus a non-refundable tax credit.
It's a great question. So without getting too far into the weeds, the refundable portion of the tax credit is all of the monies that you kept paying your employees on throughout the 2020 and the 3 quarters of 2021. The current administration cut off the 4th quarter, so we only used the first 3 quarters of 2021. But all of the employee wages that you paid, including the medical benefits, their group health insurance benefits, can be included in eligibility for the ERTC. The non-refundable portion is all the monies that you paid in taxes, their payroll taxes for Social Security, Medicare, that actually, if you paid those, you also are owed those back. So the way you actually perform the calculations and go for the return is completing those calculations, putting them on the 941X, submitting them to the IRS, and then at some point in the future, you will get a check for your refund. So
that's where so you actually, because there are some tax credits that are just tax credits and they go against, taxes, but this is, you actually will get a check for, like, if you're a business, you get a check for like 5 or 10 grand, right?
Or more. It could be 50 grand, could be 100, but you will actually, the IRS will actually send you checks for the ERTC. Yes.
What was the biggest one that we've put through so far for our little, for our clients amount?
Oh, I know we've done up to $5 million in return for a client.
Yeah,
I would say most of them fall somewhere in the 1 to 3 million, but we've done up to 5 million.
But so we're talking, we're talking, $1 million, a few $100,000 at the very least. I don't know. I don't know one business that couldn't use $1 million right on the bottom line, right?
Absolutely.
Back from taxes, stuff. Okay. So it does seem too be good to be true. I happen to know that it's true because I see the checks come back to our clients.
Sure.
But I get it, right? Like I get why people, feel like it's too good to be true. Talk to me about some of the conversations we have with customers when they're like, "There's no way." Like, how does that? Well, tell me about what that conversation feels like.
I think the first time when we do the calculation, the first time we actually tell them what the refund amount to them, it is invariably that type of response. Like really, IRS is just going to send me a check for that amount of money. And the answer is yes. There is some process where the IRS may send a letter asking for some additional information. There might be a partial disallowance because they need additional data. And, we have to supply that data to them just to make sure that all of the calculations are correct. But I think that's a pretty big moment for most of our clients, and exciting to know at some point in the future, I'm going to get a check for a sizable amount of money. And I think one of the reasons why they don't pursue it is the amount of disinformation that was out there originally was voluminous. So a lot of businesses, even if you were to Google, search the internet, and look up ERTC and eligibility, you don't know if you're looking at the guidance from late 2020 or early 2021. There have been so many changes to the rules and the laws that if you don't keep up with it, you may be looking at dated information. And that is the number one peril out there for anybody to be reading old information at a time where all of these rules and the law was changing so with a lot of velocity.
Yeah, I will tell you what, I mean, in preparation for this call today, I did a little, I did my own research, which equals I Googled some stuff, right? And I will tell you, there's stuff from the IRS out there. There's stuff from, companies that say that they do ERC, right? And apparently there's a bunch of them. It's a new little cottage industry. And there's stuff from, like, I don't know, some guy on his couch, right? who doesn't know really anything. And then there's old stuff, there's fake stuff. It's I mean, it really is important right, to like know who you're talking to.
I think one thing I would add there as well is you need to not be too aggressive when it comes to the ERTC. Your CPA or your tax attorney, they may or may not be an expert when it comes to ERTC, and that's a conversation you should have up on the front end. And I think a lot of businesses, they look at the first test, which is, did I have a gross reduction in my revenues of 80% or more in 2020 and greater than 20% or more in any quarter in 2021? And that is one test. I think in many states, however, the second test, which allows you to claim the ERTC and be eligible as well, is if your business was impacted more than nominally, and nominal by the IRS is more than 10% in any of your revenue generating areas. And it was done by government shutdown and mandates. And it's really important to know your state and where the government shutdown mandates were and how long they actually existed. And a lot of businesses are finding they didn't meet the gross revenue reduction test, but they do meet the government mandated shutdown test. Mm-hmm. Restaurants are a great example of this. Right. Yeah. So they had to shut down in-person dining. They had limited capacity for dining that had more than a 10% impact on their revenues, and they would be qualified for the ERTC. Mm-hmm. But you really do need to have a conversation around these rules to make sure that you're not claiming a tax credit that ultimately you don't qualify for. So we should have a conversation about that.
Sure. I know we had a couple of clients that we have that they've got they're restaurants, right? And so they're fast food, and dining in was shut down. It's prohibited. So what they do, they open the drive-through, and so their revenues actually increased, right? If they had to pivot, and their revenues actually increased over the time frame. Luckily, but they had to change their business operation in order for it to do that. But they're still eligible because of the shutdown where they were, right?
That's a great point, because it's not a profitability test, it's a gross revenues test. So it's top line revenue to your business. So where you had reductions in your top line revenue, your gross receipts is what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you were more profitable, less profitable, that actually is not part of the test.
Yeah. So all right, so I don't know how long we've been chatting here for a little bit, probably 10-15 minutes or so. I don't want to make this more out to be more than it is, but what should businesses do? Like what should they look for, and And yeah, what should they look for in the market for an ERTC provider? And then I guess, should every business look into it?
Yeah, I would, when you're looking at an ERTC provider, not everybody is going to qualify or be eligible for this. So I'd just be a little bit wary of any provider out there who doesn't run through the eligibility rules. While Puzzle is not going to tell a client that they are or are not eligible for the program, we will absolutely guide them along the ERTC eligibility rules. At the end of the day, you need to make the determination on whether or not you want to apply for the ERTC credit, because at the end of the day, it's a tax refund credit. You need to make the determination based on all of your revenue, based on how government mandates for shutdown impacted your business. But you should have, a serious ERTC provider who knows the ins and outs of the rules and can give you the interpretive guidance to make the decision for your business. Any provider who just says, hey, it's a tax credit, go ahead and take advantage of it. We'll do your calculations. Everything will be fine. I would be, be cautious of that.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, we'll do it for 20%.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, that, when it comes down to doing the calculations, this certainly, it's complicated, but it's not calculus 5 here.
Yeah.
And the reality is as long as you have a provider that knows how to treat your PPP loans, how to do the calculations, how to make sure that you're not asking for more credit than you're owed or less credit than you're owed, you don't need to pay 20%. You don't need to pay 15%. These are large sums of money that you're just giving to a provider, and it's I'm not gonna say it's predatory, but it's it's piggish.
Sure. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you spending some time with me today to talk about this riveting topic, taxes and HR, right? So it's taxes because it's a tax credit, and it's an HR because it has to deal with your human resources, like employees that we had. So that's why we can even talk about this stuff. And certainly, JB, really appreciate your leadership in the space. It's been a crazy couple of years, and I'm really happy that we're able to bring this service to our customers. So I know that again, I see the paperwork come through on my side, so I know that we're getting clients hundreds of thousands of dollars back, which is really transformational to their company, to their businesses, and that's all because of the work that you and your team have been doing. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I will tell you, being in HR outsourcing for 25 years, working with businesses when they didn't know where to turn to get PPP loans, they couldn't get their banker that they've had for 30 years on the phone to give them a PPP loan when they've been banking with them, for 30 years and sometimes longer than that. Very disheartening, to hear these stories, but it was really wonderful to be able to work with the SBA, work with these businesses, help them get the PPP loans. And then when businesses became eligible for the ERTC after PPP, and to help them get these refunds, I will tell you, in 25 years, it's been some of the most rewarding work that I've personally been involved with, because it really impacted, our clients. So thanks for having me.
No, that's great, Jonathan. Everyone, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today. For more information, I'm sure there's going to be a link someplace that you can click if you want to see some of the early, if you really just want to kick back and have a riveting night and go back and watch some of our early PPP or CARES Act webinars. It's right on our website, PuzzleHR.com, or on our YouTube channel. But you can see it on our resources page. But yeah, we've been doing this for a little bit, and we're happy to help anyone who's looking for some advice in this area. So